Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Thursday night edition of the program. We're live, we're national. I'm very happy to be here with you, and it really is a blessing. Our phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give me a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And a couple of big items that I'm looking at tonight. You've got China, the market crashing. El Trompito's tariff strategy is working. A little while ago, a friend of mine, Lydia Serrani from Newsmax TV, we actually used to share a radio studio in New York City. I heard her say on Greg Kelly's show that it's only a matter of time before they become the new victim du jour. Before, instead of Ukrainian flags everywhere, we're going to see Chinese flags everywhere, with everyone feeling sympathetic that we have crushed the Chinese economy. And in effect, this is a remarkable feat, right? History will remember this. And I'm going to say they're going to be very kind to Donaldus Magnus El Trompito, the 45th and 47th president of these United States, because he's in effect engaged in a Cold War with China. Forget a trade war, right? He's hurting their economy. They're looking to stimulate their economy with a stimulus. They're running scared. All because of El Trompito Donaldus Magnus and his shrewd policies. I got to tell you, my hat is off to the president. And these stocks are not looking good. Last report I saw, it was down 1,000 points. Yikes. Yikes is right. Anyway, some sad news. There was a helicopter crash in New York City. And that's a shame. It really is. I saw the video of that. And just horrible to watch. I've done that once. I took a helicopter tour around Manhattan. And it really was a fantastic experience. They call it the Twilight Tour. You could do it like at sundown. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. You start when the sun is going down, so you'd still have sunlight. You could see all of like New York Harbor and the Statue of Liberty and the New York skyline, the New Jersey skyline. And I did it long ago, like 20-something years ago, before the Twin Towers were knocked down. So we were able to get fly right between them, which was really cool. Anyway, all that being said, tragic nonetheless, this helicopter crash. And big story of the day, the House has passed their budget. Now it's off to the Senate for the next round. 216 to 214, Republicans passed this joint budget resolution, and you've got 2 Republicans voting against it. Thomas Massey and Victoria Spartz. We've had her on the program before. We invited her, but she wasn't available tonight. But we'll get to the bottom of it. We're going to dig into this in a bit. But I love it when government actually works, right? It's always a good thing. Anyway, I do have a quick report on this. Go right ahead.
This was a busy morning for House Speaker Mike Johnson. Lots of meetings behind closed doors with those holdouts, those more conservative House members of the Republicans who believe these spending cuts don't go far enough. This was all a vote to approve sort of a blueprint of this one big, beautiful bill that President Donald Trump calls it, and to extend the Trump-era tax cuts tied to that bill. Congress needs to find some big spending cuts to pay for all that, and there's been some big disagreements among Republicans over how to go about finding those spending cuts and just how deep those spending cuts should go. So House Speaker Mike Johnson expressed some confidence earlier this morning about that number, $1.5 trillion in spending cuts. Basically what this does today with this vote is it paves the way for that one big, beautiful bill.
One big, beautiful bill, right? As though the president likes to say, one big, beautiful bill. Going to be terrific, huge. Anyway, we're going to get into that momentarily with a member of Congress, Congressman Mark Harris, a Republican from North Carolina, is going to be joining us in just a couple of minutes. But before we get into that, I want to just kind of double down on some of the news, because I think it's important that we keep things in perspective, right? You've got so much that's occurring and so quickly in the media cycle. You've got the market yesterday up and down and then up. Now you've got China down, and the whole thing is honestly, it's a very, I'm going to say it's a brilliant move on behalf of the president, because you've literally got the entire planet, or at least a whole lot of our planet, kind of in agreement. Whether they are in agreement or not, they agree we want to work with the United States. We don't want to retaliate. And it's kind of us and China. And whether they see it that way or not, that's the reality of it. So very, very excited to see what happens from there. For years, the conservative movement has called out China. And for years, very little has been done. And every now and again, you get the courageous member of Congress that calls out their own colleagues for being somewhat sympathetic, at least in their opinion, towards China and different things, that could benefit China. And here we are with a commander-in-chief that's actually taken a bold move against China. And I've got to say, it's refreshing, absolutely refreshing to see what's going on. And I, for one, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what's coming. If we stay on this track, I think we're looking at lower interest rates sooner rather than later. I was thinking something beyond June, and we're probably still around that timeline. But it might come a little sooner than next fall, which is good news for me and you and everybody else. All right, so amigos, we're going to continue the conversation. I want to talk about the big, beautiful bill and what that looks like going to the Senate, as well as some input on everything else that's going on Capitol Hill. We're going to do that momentarily with our guest. As I mentioned, we're scheduled to have Congressman Mark Harris, Republican from North Carolina, joining us momentarily. And, of course, your calls, thoughts, and opinions on all of the news of the day. 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Well, thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
On this vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 214. The motion is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company straight till midnight, 1 a.m. in some areas, working the late shift with you. And that's the big news of the day. along with the inflation report coming in a lot better than expected. And we'll get into that momentarily as well. But I want to really take a look at this budget resolution that was passed in the House today. I want to talk about the SAVE Act in the next segment, because that was a really big deal. And so much of what's going on Capitol Hill, because honestly, in my time observing politics, I got to say, I feel like things are getting cranked out quicker now than I've seen them happen ever. But I want to get the inside scoop from somebody who's on the ground and knows exactly what's going on. Congressman Mark Harris, welcome.
Hey, Rich. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for making the time to join us and bring us up to speed on what's going on. So you guys passed this big, beautiful bill, and or at least the framework for that. And it's good to see it's happening. I think there's a lot of Americans on every side of every aisle, Congressman, that are really looking forward to no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. How much closer are we to that today?
Well, I think we are somewhat closer as a result of what happened today. But I do have to say the real hard work of putting the real numbers on paper are going to be coming in the weeks just ahead. What we did today was a major step in getting the budget resolution passed. You know, we've been working ever since we got to Congress. I'm in first term, so I'm a freshman, and we were sworn in on January 3rd. There had been an enormous amount of work going on in the House leading up to this because Speaker Johnson, Steve Scalise, and others just genuinely believed, as a lot of us did and hoped for, that we were going to get the trifecta. And when you have the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives, it provides us that opportunity to do budget reconciliation. And so there was a lot of legwork that was put into it really over months leading up to the election and then after the election. And then since January 3rd, we have been on top of it. So we sent a bill over to the House. Our framework, as you covered several weeks ago, was pretty astounding. It was a bill that took a lot of work to get there, where it was really kind of a balancing act because it showed $1.5 to $2 trillion in savings, shrinking the size of government, and it did extend the Trump tax cuts. And it would also leave the leeway for us to make part of that, of those tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security,
right,
and all of these things that I know are part of the president's agenda. And as we would ramp up the savings that we would find, we were able to increase those tax cuts along the way. So that's what we sent over to the Senate. And we've been waiting. I would say patiently, but I don't know that we've been real patient, but we've been waiting. And they came back after the Votorama Friday night into early Saturday morning with really what was a bit of a surprise and, from my perspective, a great disappointment. And that was they showed $4 billion in savings and making the Trump tax cut permanent, which we didn't have a problem with that, but we were very disturbed by the lack of savings and spending that we were going to see. And so that's what all of the drama, obviously, that was playing out this week was about. I certainly had expressed over the weekend. I had a conversation with legislative liaison from the White House and expressed my concerns about being asked to vote on a bill with only $4 billion in savings. That was concerning to me. And so as a result, I was invited to the White House, and I went with a group of conservatives on Tuesday and met with the president. And he certainly shared, a perspective that was good to hear. Speaker Johnson has worked diligently. I mean, I've got to give the speaker incredible props. He is working all angles of this, working with a very diverse group, trying to herd cats to get to the 218, to get to the majority. And there at the White House, basically he said, Mr. President, I think all of these people, I know, they want to see your agenda move forward. They want to work with you. They just need your assurance that all of the work that we've done is what's going to be driving this. And those savings, you yourself, want to see a balanced budget. And these are folks that want to see that as well. And the president gave the assurance there. And so, we got back in ready to go to vote yesterday. And when it came time, there were still some that were not convinced. Some of them were not in that meeting on Tuesday. And so there was a meeting there last night, conversations that were held. And to their credit, I will say they were looking for certainty and some kind of assurances, because there are people that have been there much longer than I have been. As I said, I'm a freshman. So for them, they've been burned and they're battle scarred, a lot of them. And they needed more. And I think that what you saw play out this morning with Senator Thune and Speaker Johnson holding a joint press conference and sharing the perspective and all of the details. Listen, Rich, there are rules in the Senate and the way they do things in the Senate that I'm not sure anybody completely understands how they operate over there. But they just needed to get some numbers on the page. But what you heard Senator Thune say today, that many in the Senate, and we're trusting that it's going to be the larger percentage, are wanting to see these significant savings, these significant shrinking of the size of government. And they understand the spending is what is out of control. And if they come back with in this big, beautiful bill, we're all going to be able to agree on something that is going to be in that range, perhaps of 1.5 to 2 trillion or more, then this is going to be historic. And I'm excited about it. And we got over the finish line today.
Well, outstanding work, Congressman Mark Harris, Republican from North Carolina's 8th District. And make sure you check him out at Mark Harris NC8 on Twitter. Congressman, I love what I'm hearing. I typically don't have a lot of problems with the guys in the House. You guys always get it done, even if there's disagreement, like Representative Spartz and Thomas Massey. I get it. I do get it. Just like you said, there were others that had expressed concerns and were looking for assurances, and some couldn't get over that hill. Understood. But it got done. It's the Senate that typically worries me, right? I don't know too many Mitch McConnells in the Senate. And those guys and Susan Collins and others that really concern me. How concerned should I be?
Well, then you're expressing your experience, as you're stating, is very similar to what I hear from a number of my colleagues, and they are concerned. But I will say this. There's a whole new dynamic in Washington, D.C. The people in November of 24 elected us to go to Washington, D.C., and they gave us the trifecta to do government differently. And let's face it, I mean, every day is a huge news cycle. I mean, every day. And it's hitting us hourly because this president is doing government differently. And so,
Congressman, stick with me. I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to make sure we talk about the SAVE Act and we talk about inflation. So stand by. We're going to come right back with Congressman Mark Harris from North Carolina, Republican from the 8th District, and me, Rich Valdez. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I went 4 years without inflation, and I tariffed. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others, taxes in China. We're in good shape. There's no inflation. There's very little inflation. And I went 4 years without inflation, and I tariffed. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others, taxes in China. But we took in hundreds of billions of dollars a year from China, and we had no inflation, essentially.
That, of course, President Trump, who I like to call El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th and 47th president of these United States. And the talk is about the CPI numbers today. CPI numbers are in. Inflation is lower than it's been in a long time. I think I heard somebody say it hasn't been this low since Trump was last in office. I want to get some reaction to that. I also want to hear about the SAVE Act, which was also a big story coming out of Capitol Hill today from our guest. Our guest is Congressman Mark Harris, Republican from North Carolina's 8th District. Congressman, welcome back.
Thank you, Rich. Good to be with you.
Yes, sir. Likewise. It's a privilege to have this conversation. Because big day, right? Big day for a lot of things, for inflation, for the budget resolution, and not the least of which was the SAVE Act. But let's talk about inflation, because I think this has been top of mind for a lot of people. A lot of people are freaking out about inflation, and things are starting to shape up despite all of the fire and brimstone that the media has been clamoring about with respect to the markets and the uncertainty there. Things are looking better at the gas pump, on the grocery lines. Mm-hmm. Your thoughts?
Well, I agree. The president has, right before we went to break, when you had asked if we felt like we should be concerned about the Senate, and what the point I was going to make was that this is just a whole new day in government. You've got a president that is a bold leader, and he's demonstrating leadership at every turn. You have a John Thune who is now a new leader of the Senate. He has not at this point indicated that he's going to travel the same path that Mitch McConnell had. And you got Speaker Johnson, who seems to be working well with Leader Thune right now. And I think between the president, the Senate, and the House, there is a relationships that I think we can trust. As a new member of Congress, I came to terms with this bill we voted on today by saying, the old adage is true. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And I'm willing to give these new leaders and this new leadership an opportunity and to give them the trust that what they're telling me is where we're headed. And I'm certainly willing to stand with them shoulder to shoulder as we keep going. So, but the president is. We are seeing the price of eggs coming down. The price at the pump has come down. Still, we have room to improve. Groceries, we do want to see those prices come down. And there are things that we've got to take care of. He's made bold moves, obviously, here with the tariffs. And yet he's bringing 70 countries, I think, have already contacted the White House, maybe more by now, that are wanting to come and make a deal. So, things are moving in the right direction, and inflation, as you said, is down today.
Yeah, and this is good news. And I know the president's goal with the USDS, the United States Doge Service, is to ultimately reduce our deficit to the point that we don't have to carry this huge debt anymore and the debt service along with it, so that interest rates will come down and life can become more affordable, and that spurs more economic activity. How close do you think we are to that happening?
Well, I think we're going to continue to see all of these things settled out over the next 90 days. I'm hoping over these next 3 months. The markets, as you know, we watch them go up, we watch them go down. Nobody needs to be panicking at this particular point. I don't think, and I think most Americans are willing to give this president the time and a chance to see these things happen. Of course, you've got folks on the left that are screaming bloody murder. because this is the only thing that they've got that they're able to scream about at this point. And, we just have to continue to give it time and see how it is going to play out.
I agree with you 100%. Excuse me. You say the left are screaming, and it's so true. You got Adam Schiff out there crying, AOC out there crying about insider trading, which I think is the funniest thing. And no offense to present company, but it's your buddies, right? Your colleagues, and they're likely more guilty of insider trading than President Trump telling the American people to buy while stocks are low.
Exactly. I mean, listen. The bottom line is anybody with any common sense could look at these market swings all my life. People have said when the market drops down, that's a great buying opportunity. And I think anybody can see that, but you're exactly right.
Now, I want to talk about the SAVE Act.
Yes.
Lay the foundation for us. We did talk about this a while back when it was proposed, and I want to make sure the audience knows exactly what's going on so that we understand, how big of a deal it is.
Well, it is a big deal. I mean, I made a point today, made a speech on the House floor, and in a 1-minute speech said, in America, you can't drive a car, you can't board a plane, can't even buy fireworks without an ID, proving you are who you say you are. So why are folks allowed to vote to decide the future of our country without proving that they're a citizen first? So we voted today on the SAVE Act. Chip Roy introduced that, and yet we saw 208 Democrats vote against removing non-citizens from voter rolls and requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote. And, I think it's a very big deal. I think we passed it in the last Congress. Chuck Schumer had control of the Senate and made sure that it never saw the light of day. He doesn't have control right now. Now, granted, we're going to have to see 7 Democrats get us over that 60-vote threshold for them to be able to pass it in the Senate and the president to sign it into law, and that will be somewhat of a lift. But again, the environment is such that perhaps if we're ever going to do it, this is going to be the time. And we did have some Democrats that did cross over, and so you could say it was bipartisan today in order to get it over the finish line.
Now, Congressman, to play completely dumb here, why would some of your colleagues across the aisle vote against something that makes so much sense?
Well, let's just be frank about it. The radical left are the ones that have been flooding our borders with illegal aliens and getting them to abuse all the loopholes in our election laws. And I'm convinced of that. And what the SAVE Act actually does is close those election loopholes and ensures that Americans will decide the future of America when it comes to our elections. And I think those on the other side, they want to keep those borders open. And President Trump has, what is it? They're down 96% of coming across our border now. I think that's huge. And I think that's the only reason that folks on the other side of the aisle want to keep it open.
Congressman Mark Harris, a Republican from North Carolina, I want to thank you for being here. It really helped us understand a lot about what's going on today and keeping us up to speed. I'm hopeful that we'll see some progress on the SAVE Act. What else do you have coming down the pipe that people might want to keep an eye out for?
Well, I've actually introduced a bill last week that is called the Free Speech Fairness Act. I've served as a pastor for 36 years, and this is a bill that is going after the Johnson Amendment in 1954 that came along and basically has said to churches and to nonprofits to create a cloud over them to say if you speak politically, if you support a particular political candidate, it could cost you your C3 status. And it's been used as a threat. And so we are pushing this bill. Again, it's been introduced in previous Congresses and passed the House and not gotten through the Senate. But we feel like the atmosphere is right. President Trump in his first term ordered the IRS not to go after churches using the Johnson Amendment in their practices. And so I know that he's been supportive of it. I've already got 20 sponsors, co-sponsors of the bill just this week since we introduced it. And so we're hoping to see that move through very quickly.
Well, amen. Praise God. Hallelujah. Because let me tell you, when I was 22 years old, or 21 even, listening to the radio, I was listening to Dr. James Dobson. And he was talking about this, right, on his show, Focus on the Family back then. And he was saying, listen, pastors, don't be afraid. Don't let them bully you. And, he was, given the all of the information saying, look, you still have the ability to do what you got to do without losing this, that, and the other, without endorsing anybody. But you can talk about the issues. And there was many campaigns back then where people were basically threatening houses of worship, saying, like, no, don't talk about politics. You'll lose it. You'll lose your 501c3 status, and that's it. So this has been going, I'm 46 now. So this is a long time. It's been going on, and it's about time we clarify it, get a law on the books, and embolden the people of God that are out there that are just doing God's work.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's what we're hoping to do. And Senator Lankford has introduced the companion bill to it in the Senate, and we're gonna get it through committee on the House floor, through the House, and hope that he's going to be able to move it in the Senate as well.
Well, if there's anything we can do to help you, let me know. I've got about 6 million friends that listen to this show every night, and we'll do everything we can to move that forward.
That is wonderful. Well, thank you so much, and listen, it's been great to be with you. Appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. Godspeed to you. Congressman Mark Harris, you're a gentleman, a scholar, and a patriot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, amigos, we continue. Your thoughts, calls, and reactions, don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Trump seems to be doing, from tweeting people to buy stock and then later announcing his development on taxes. If people are pissed about insider trading here at the House, look at what's happening at the White House right now and with the Republican Party.
Do you think he knew what he was doing when he sent out that message about stocks before he made the announcement?
It sure seemed like he did. I don't think that it was a coincidence. I don't think that Trump just coincidentally said buy stocks and then shortly later made an announcement that dramatically inflated and dramatically raised a lot of these asset prices. And, I've heard murmurings on the floor that there may have been people that knew that this was coming. And I'm very interested in seeing some of the stock disclosures that come out when those reports are due. And I'm very interested in what members of Congress have been buying and trading stocks in the last 24 hours prior to this tariff announcement.
That is my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, AOC, All Out Crazy, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And All Out Crazy is really, in my opinion, missing the mark here. Number one, how do you accuse the White House of insider trading? What did the White House do? Control trade policy and tell Americans that they should buy stocks while they're low? Let us just say, and it'd be great if we could get a securities lawyer to chime in on this, but I would venture to say, let us just say Rich Valdez is president of the United States. And I say, I would bet that in my negotiations with all of these whack jobs in these other countries that are fighting with me over whatever, that this is going to cause some tumult in the markets. And I would bet that they're going to sound the alarm. And this is going to send things through the floor. And I would also suspect that if we announce the exact opposite to be true, that there is a reprieve, that there is a deal, that it's not what people thought it was, that yes, the markets will rebound. And in this window, I am going to urge my fellow Americans to get out there and buy this stuff while it's cheap. And I'm going to do it intentionally, Rich Valdez now, hypothetically, so that my fellow Americans can cash in. Because as President of the United States, Rich Valdez is not a signatory and doesn't have any fiduciary responsibility to any of these stocks. Right? So I'm the president. My responsibility is to the people. Is that an insider trade? He didn't have direct control over anything but trade policy. Everything else was ancillary, right? These are reactions to his policies. So I think they'd be hard-pressed to even make the case that, did you think you know what he was doing, right? When you heard the question there, who cares if he knew what he was doing? In Spanish, we would say, ¿Y a ti qué te importa? What does that matter to you? Who cares? It's not like he was buying stock. He was telling the American people to do it so they can be rich. This is the guy that said we want to make America wealthy again. Things like this type of lack of thinking from Congresswoman AOC kills me. She says, oh, they want to talk about us in Congress. Yeah, they want to talk about you in Congress because you guys have a financial services committee. You guys actually regulate these companies. El Trompito is not regulating a company that's trading anything openly on the stock exchange. Now, I guess maybe the securities lawyer that has still yet to call in could make the case and say, no, Rich, you're totally wrong. You're totally wrong. Trump's ability to influence the markets is the biggest insider trade of all time. All right, maybe I'll stand corrected. Maybe not. I think I'll still argue my case that he's doing what he's supposed to do. When a congressperson is guilty of insider trading, they're doing what they're supposed to do as a member, let's say, of the Financial Services Committee, but they don't have to act on this. And if they were to go to their 8 million followers like AOC has on her social media and say, buy now, would that be insider trading since she's on the committee? Would it not be? Does she have a direct impact? Yeah, because she's going to vote on this thing. I don't know. It sounds interesting. I like my argument. I really do. Anyway, I think she's full of it. She's fake. She's phony. She's fraud. And she doesn't want to see the American people make money. I'm coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. And a little bit too tight to get to phone calls right now, so I apologize for that. But I'm looking forward to chatting with you in the next hour. 833-4-VALDEZ is the phone number. And we're going to get into a bunch of stuff this coming hour. Continue our conversation on Big Beautiful Bill, Big Beautiful. But we're going to talk about jobs, and we're going to talk about interest rates. We're going to talk about the CPI numbers and so much more of what's going on. Then it's the environment. We're going to talk with the former chief of staff at EPA. So keep it locked right here, folks. Rich Valdez coming right back.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media, your liberty-loving Latino amigo. Happy to be here with you, blessed to be on the mic with you, and we're live, we're national, and I'm looking forward to speaking with you guys in short order on open phones across America. We'll be doing that very, very quickly. The phone number for that, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And again, some of the big headlines that I'm following today. Congresswoman AOC says that there's insider trading going on inside the White House. Unbelievable. Then we've got Jasmine Crockett. She's out there saying, what was Jasmine Crockett saying? I just saw it here. It was so funny. Tiffany Cross has made a comeback. I mean, there's so many good sound bites out there today. And Tiffany Cross, you're welcome to join us on this program. Congresswoman Crockett, you are welcome to join us on this program. And Congresswoman AOC, you are always welcome to join us on this program. I would love to be graced by any one of their presence. But what number is Crockett? The Congresswoman from Texas, Jasmine Crockett, today was very upset, and she had something very interesting to say. She says that the market reaction is because of the Trump tariffs. This is a roller coaster ride. And quite frankly, it is, right? It goes up, it goes down. That's kind of what markets do. But she tries to blame it solely on Trump. And I don't think this is solely based on Trump, right? I think this is based on a lot of factors. But listen to what she had to say.
Listen, we are clearly on a roller coaster, and it's not just those of us in the United States. It's our friends and our enemies, and obviously it is also the markets. I can't keep up with which way he is going when it comes to his strategy over the tariffs, but what I can tell you is that Americans did not vote for anyone, whether they were voting for the members of the House or the Senate or the presidency, so that they could just increase the cost on all American goods or non-American goods or goods in general. So I hope that we can get things on track. I hope that in a bipartisan way, we can rein in this rogue wannabe king.
How do you rein in the rogue wannabe king, who is also the elected president of the United States? How do you rein him in a bipartisan way? I mean, the things that I hear these people say sometimes, it really just makes me scratch my head. Clearly, the Republicans are supporting President Trump's agenda. He's a Republican. He's the de facto leader of the party and has been. Not just because he's president. He's been. Because he was president, because he can fill the stadiums, because he can raise the money. He's the guy. What is going on here with the Congresswoman? I mean, I understand you got to take shots. I do. But come on. I mean, there wasn't even a shot to be taken here. A whole bunch of people got rich, right, or made a few bucks. I'm talking about poor people like you and me, not rich people like Jasmine Crockett and El Trumpito. All he said was buy now. Now's a good time. Buy low. Everybody knew that. People were saying that a year ago, or at least 8 or 9 months ago, because they fully expected a full-on recession to happen. You know, we would likely be in a recession right now, but for all of the billions of dollars of investment that Donald Trump has brought into the country. There would be so much less confidence. Things would be a lot worse than they are right now with the volatility in the market if we didn't have Sun Bank and Apple and all these other AI outfits that are, stepping up saying, hey, we're here. And speaking of that, just to go back to what Congresswoman Crockett just had to say, when she says, what I can tell you is that Americans did not vote for anyone whether they were voting for the members of the House or the Senate or the presidency, just so they can increase the cost on all American goods or non-American goods. I mean, that's just a factually wrong statement, number one. In general, she said. So I hope we can get things back on track. Yeah, of course. We all want things back on track, Congresswoman. Great job. I feel like she, A, doesn't understand the issue. And B, why is there all this investment in AI? And listen, I understand there's some skepticism on AI, but I can tell you from listening to Secretary Lutnick, who says that robotics are going to play a big part of this American comeback. So when people say, how are you going to compete with China? Well, maybe if you have a robot instead of a human being, you can pay it slave wages, right? Because robots don't make money. AI, once it's developed, doesn't need to get paid. It needs to be maintained. So just imagine now you're building these factories with a high degree of automation to compete with China, right? We're hiring some low skill level people, some higher skill level people to manage the AI and the infrastructure. And now you've got robots cranking things out that defeats the child labor and the slave labor that they've got in China. There's no way the United States can compete. China's always going to make it cheaper. What if we have robots? What if Elon Musk is working on that? What if, I mean, there's so many what ifs here. You're going to tell me that we don't have the technological advantage of the United States, home of the assembly line? And that was 1 million years ago, the assembly line. All right? I truly think that there is a new industrial revolution about to happen in our country. I want to know what you guys think. Let us go to the phones. I want to go to John. John is in Nokesville, Virginia on WMAL. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. Great program.
Thank you, sir.
I deal in securities. I'm a financial advisor. Insider trading is when you know information that's not public information. It's insider information. And you trade on that, or you advise someone to trade on that to profit from information that's not public. That's why it's called insider information, insider trading.
That's a good definition.
If Trump does a tariff and then says to the American people, "Hey, buy some stock," to me that's the opposite of insider trading. That's
right.
It's public information. I'm telling the little man how to make money, not the person who knows things that others don't know. I'm helping just regular people make some money, have confidence in the market because it will bounce back. The laws of the Securities Acts of 1933 and 1934 were about insider trading, and they're nicknamed the Joe Kennedy laws because he used to do insider trading and made a fortune off of it. And he was on the board of directors of a major bank, and he knew all the inside particular information on executives and companies before they were doing things, and he was trading stock based on that. And it used to be the gentleman's agreement that no one would do that, but Joe Kennedy stepped across the line. That's why the Securities Acts of 1933 and 34 are sort of nicknamed the Joe Kennedy laws. So if Trump does something that's public and tells the public to do something, that's almost the opposite of insider trading. If he had told his family members or friends or associates, hey, buy these stocks or sell these stocks based on what I'm going to do in a few days, and they made a lot of money off of it, that would be insider trading. But not doing something publicly and then saying to the American people, hey, you can make some money. Be confident. This market's going to come back.
100%. I'm with you. And I think it's his responsibility as the commander-in-chief to tell people to go out there and invest in the American economy. Because if he's not doing it, who do we expect to do it? Right? We're not going to have Vladimir Putin or Xi Jinping come out here and say, yeah, go buy some stocks, keep your company, your country afloat, keep your markets up. That's not going to happen. So very good point. And that's, I think, the point I was trying to make earlier. How, it's all over the news. The whole world knew what was going on. How was this insider information? John in Nokesville, Virginia, WMAL. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I want to continue. Let us go to Manassas, Virginia, WMAL, and check in with Rick. Rick, you're on with Rich Valdez.
Hey, Rich. This is Rick in Manassas, and right next to Nokesville, by the way. So the insider trading stuff is very technical, but I got to agree with the last caller from beautiful downtown Nokesville. And what Trump did enables every American that owns stock in his 401 to say, or 401 or any of these retirement accounts, go buy. Believe in America. He has brought more investment here. And while I'm on that, ask those idiots in the Democratic Party, AOC, Jasmine Crockett. AOC killed the Amazon deal in New York
I remember.
City. What a complete freaking knucklehead with zero understanding of economics 101. And that's what you get when you study bartendering and mixing drinks.
And Karl Marx, right?
Astounding.
Yeah, it really is. It's so unfortunate. And it stems, in my opinion, what she was complaining about the other day when she says, I've heard the Republicans, they say I hate this country. But that's where it stems from. When you have a genuine hatred for America, you don't want to see the country be number one because you believe that we're this evil empire, this imperialist Yankee, blah, 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 whatever they want to call us, colonizer, etc. When you buy that, you sip that Kool-Aid, there's already a reticence within you where you don't want to see the country succeed. And lamentably, that's what I see. The version of success that she has is not that the country collectively, as a collectivist, you would think she would do that, to see everyone do well, a rising tide, lifting all boats. No, she wants to see pockets of people get lifted out of poverty in the most unfair way possible at the government's expense, which, of course, is no expense because it's at taxpayer expense. So at the end of the day, you're 100% right. These people are off their rockers, Rick. They really are. Thank you for the call, brother. I appreciate it. Shout out to everybody else in the Manassas area, WMAL. I'm going to take a quick pause right here. We're going to come right back and continue the conversation. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, we continue the conversation with you all, the American people. Open phones across America, 833-482-5337, 833-4VALDEZ. And I'm trying to keep my eyes peeled here on all the different things that are happening. Lots of big stuff today. Again, the president's big, beautiful bill, first part of it has been passed through the budget resolution as a resolution in Congress. So kudos to Mike Johnson and everybody for getting that done, as well as CPI numbers that have come back at 2.4%. Best inflation we've seen in a hot minute. Can't wait till those interest rates come down and we can start seeing some economic growth in the housing sector. And what else? We were talking about AI and how AI and robotics and a bunch of things that people don't like. Automation, right? If you're a union guy, like a longshoreman, remember that last summer with the big controversy with the contracts? And look, I understand. I remember the it wasn't just the longshoreman. Who else had a big deal with that? The Hollywood writers' strike, right? That was a big deal also. The writers' strike was all about that, saying, look, no, we can't have AI. We're writers. You can't use AI to do writing. And listen, I've never been a writer, so I don't know. But I can tell you, I got to make sure my contract says no AI because, A, that's like stealing, right? Imagine getting some AI that sounds like me and they kind of program it with like, I don't know. I've done a lot of shows. I've been doing this for 7 years in 7 days, right? Yeah, I think in 7 days it'll be my 7th anniversary or 8 days. And you could pretty much, just like all the other Chat GPT stuff that's out there and Grok and all those things, they're like, relatively right. Every now and again they get something wrong, but it's a robot. It's a AI. Anyway, I get that. But I also realize it's inevitable. And especially if the alternative, and I don't believe it's inevitable to think, all right, I'm going to turn on the radio tonight. I'm bored to tears. I want to go to sleep. And that Valdez, he puts me to bed. Okay. I don't think they're going to get a robot to come in, sound like me and do the show. But it's not outside of the realm of reason, right? I believe that for some people might be reasonable, not to me. But what is within the realm of reason is that we continue to use places like China where they're going to use little kids and they're going to have women growing their hair to sell as human hair for wigs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of that for what? To cost them their lives, right? These people sometimes drop dead in these factories that run 24 hours sometimes. That's not a thing. Maybe one machine goes haywire, you replace it. Some new hydraulic pumps or whatever, whatever it is that they do, these robots. I don't know what they do. But that sounds a heck of a lot better. And now you say, you know what? We pioneered this thing. While China was there building sweatshops, we've been building state-of-the-art robotics production facilities. And we do it so good and so efficiently because we're just so good with this. And we've got the best AI players in the world. And we've got all this cash coming in from AI investors. This is the place to be. We are the production capital of the world. We produce everything. Our factories make it all. Imagine that. I think that's totally doable. And I think that totally beats China. Anyway, AI. Bernie Sanders had something to say about AI. He was on CNN with Anderson Cooper. And he was talking about income and wealth inequality and a couple other things. Listen to this.
And I think many people are saying, wow, that's outrageous. I really feel for these federal employees thrown out on the street. But I want you to think about this. If Musk can do this to federal employees, some of whom are in unions, some of whom work for years, what do you think he's going to be doing when artificial intelligence and robotics comes for your job? Guess what? The job you have today ain't going to be here in 10 or 15 years. And you think Musk and his friends are saying, oh, my goodness, how do we protect American workers from the explosion in technology that we're seeing? They don't give a damn about you. If this is what they could do to federal employees, think about what they could do to people in the private sector. So bottom line there is I am not a Luddite. I think technology has many positive things to say. But we have got to understand that new technology, AI, robotics, has got to work for working people, not just for the billionaires and Mr. Musk.
The billionaires. If there's anything I take away from this is saying it that way. The billionaires. The billionaires. We have to understand that new technology, AI, robotics, has got to work for working people, not just for the billionaires and Mr. Musk. All right, well, look. I can say this. There's going to be people that have to repair the robots. There's going to be people that have to program the robots. It's going to be a new economy. Not everything's going to be robots, but it's going to be a lot. Somebody's got to manage this stuff. Enter the role for the American worker. It may not be the same, right? The guy who used to deliver ice doesn't deliver ice anymore. But he had to find a new gig, and he still worked. Amigos, we come back. More on AI when we return. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
That's 833-482-5337. 833-4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, amigos, welcome back. Rich Valdez keeping you company here on the late shift. I'm with you till midnight and 1 a.m. in many areas of the country. Our phone number is 833-482-5337. And I want to hear from you on this AI topic. We were just talking about AI and robotics and how that could make America a powerhouse in production with all of the investment that's coming in from Sun Bank and from all over the world, right? You got a bunch of people that are investing in the United States and AI players in particular. So AI seems to know no bounds. But how far is too far? I want to get your thoughts on this, so really give me a call on this. But I want you to listen to this clip of audio. This is an interesting one because this guy goes to court and puts on the video. His counsel starts speaking, and then the judge kind of gets freaked out. Listen to this.
May it please the court. I come here today a humble pro se
All right.
before a panel of 5 distinguished justices.
Is this, hold on. Is that counsel for the case?
I generated that.
I'm sorry?
I generated that. That is not a real person.
Now, this is what's going on in court in New York. This is the appeals court. And a judge in the appeals court was shocked after the plaintiff in the case was using an AI-generated lawyer. He was representing himself pro se, so by himself, but had this lawyer making his case to present the argument before the panel of judges. The guy's name, Jerome DeWalt, 74 years old. He just began presenting his argument in an employment dispute before New York State Supreme Court Appellate Division in the First Judicial Department last month when his method, right, that he chose here, this AI lawyer, in effect, this AI spokesperson that he created to present his case, really shocked the court. And they were really like, whoa, what's going on here? Hold it now. So that's the case. This guy created his own AI avatar to present his argument to the court. And just as Sally Manzanet-Daniels, she says, I don't appreciate being misled. Last week, Mr. DeWalt sat with his hands folded on his lap in Manhattan in the courtroom there, waiting for the panel of judges to hopefully hear his argument and reverse the decision of a lower court. Well, Mr. DeWalt had received prior permission from the court to pre-record a video presentation to assist with his argument because he was representing himself in the case. As soon as the video began playing, a smiling young man with red hair wearing a blue-collared T-shirt and with a beige half-zip sweater appears on the screen and says what you heard him say, may it please the court, blah, 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 blah. And the judge was really like, whoa, hold it now. And I think this is just, it was bizarre to watch that this is actually a real thing that's really happening and people are really freaking out about this stuff. But the judges quickly sensed something was off and, they were very confused. So he clarifies that he creates this AI to help him with his case. And then explains, the judge says, it would have been nice to know that when you made your application, you did not tell me that you were going to use this AI lawyer. The judge was very angry. Then, the judge adds that in reviewing the application, you can testify yourself verbally. So, they go on to say, hey, this is what's what, a little excoriation, if you will. But it begs the question for me: Is this a thing? Right? Because remember last year or a year before, we covered a story on the show where a lawyer used ChatGPT to create a legal brief, and it was filled with phony judicial opinions and fake legal citations, and the guy obviously got caught with his pants down. So I guess AI's come a long way since then, and now, they're using it to make real legal arguments. And I don't know how legal it is. I guess it's legal if that guy's representing himself and they said he could make a video to kind of assist in his presentation. That probably, fits within those guidelines. But very curious to know what you guys think about this, because I would never, ever, ever, it would never occur to me. So Anyway, I want to get your thoughts on that, on tariffs, on everything else. Let's go to Frank in Chicago, Illinois, WLS. Frank, go right ahead.
Hey, how's it going, Vince?
No, it's not Vince. It's Rich Valdez.
I'm sorry, Rich. I'm sorry. I barely listened. That's like the third time I listened to you.
Lucky me.
Apologize for that. But, hey, I'm listening, so that's a good thing. My question is, last night I was listening to you and people were calling in, or even now, you're talking about like the economic numbers that are coming out. But it's kind of confusing for me because take inflation, for example. Just last week and the previous week, Trump has been blaming Biden for inflation. He even called it Bidenflation or whatever he said. But now all of a sudden, because the numbers went down, they're his?
Yeah, well, he was talking about the numbers in February and in March. With April, because the first ones, obviously, he wasn't in office, right, when the other stuff was happening. So at some point, he has to be able to say, all right, look, I've been here now since January. Let's start doing what we're doing. And I think the efforts are starting to pay off, right? I mean, since day one, they've been slashing jobs in the federal government, trying to reduce the deficit. You know, a lot of times it's a drop in the bucket, but it's starting to add up. And I think that makes a difference. We also saw how quickly the market responds to positive news, right? We saw that there was the uncertainty of, oh my gosh, the tariffs. And then when these countries said, okay, we have capitulated to Trump, we now want to make a deal. We're willing to, like Europe said, we're willing to go 0 for 0 tariff. We're at the table, which is what Trump was trying to do, was get people to the table. Super. And in hindsight now, you look back and you say, everybody was looking to make a deal because nobody was stupid except for one bad actor, China.
That's the one country where we make 95% of our products. This can't happen overnight.
I don't think anybody's suggesting it'll happen overnight.
And it won't. It won't even take 2-3 years. Let's say I don't think there's an end game. In my opinion, I think the game plan went out the window the first day because he changed his reasons for everything. He changed it basically on a daily basis. First, it was
from what to what? Because it seems remarkably consistent to me. Where did you see a change?
Well, I mean, these are different countries, but for example, let's just use NAFTA, or not NAFTA, USMCA. He kept saying, this is a horrible deal. Who makes the deal? He made the deal. That was his 100% complete deal that he redesigned from NAFTA.
Right, he redesigned NAFTA. I have not heard him criticize his own policy of USMCA.
Well, he won't say it, but he said it numerous times. Who made this deal? Who made this deal with Canada and Mexico? This is a horrible deal. Does he have amnesia, or how does he not remember?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
He was the one that renegotiated that deal.
Yeah, well, he didn't negotiate the 270% tariff on dairy and things like that, right? Which is what they used as a negotiating tool to get these people to the table. So I think, look, if you're looking for an opportunity to criticize Trump, you're going to find one anywhere you look. That's how life works, right? If you're looking for the positivity in it, you'll find that too. If you're looking for it, and I think if you look for it, you'll find it. And some of the silver lining here is that you now have a good majority of the developed world, literally the developed world, that are looking to make a deal, that are looking to play ball, that are looking to potentially relocate and invest in the United States, which is going to bring down our deficit, allow for revenue to come in outside of income tax. And these are all wins, in my opinion, right? They also have the ability to avoid paying any type of tariff. The people that were at 10% before are back at 10%. As long as they're allies, they're on a 90-day pause. So, I mean, I think Trump's being very fair, right? He's like, hey, look, you want a trade war? We'll have one. You don't want one? Great. We'll put you on pause for a second. Let's play ball. Let's make a deal. And all of this stuff seems to have a very, very positive long-term outcome, if you will. I think the short-term outcome is where you get some of the market volatility. But like you said, this can't happen overnight, right? Because we're hooked. We're hooked. This China's running through our veins. But I'm not that old. I'm 46, and I can tell you I'm old enough to remember when China wasn't running through our veins. When I would buy, socks and underwear, and there was a little American flag on the inside. It was very common to buy made in the USA. And I think we're trying to, undo 30 years worth of bad policy. And conventional wisdom might tell you that it's going to take you 30 years to undo 30 years. I would say I look at the breakneck speed that Trump and his team are cranking out policies and executive orders and making changes. You look at how they were like, oh, but what about the price of eggs? Yeah, what about the price of eggs? Right? I think we still haven't hit 100 days. Right, the coveted 100-day mark is closely approaching, and finally, egg prices are down a whole bunch. Gas prices are down in part because of this. So I think we're beginning to see some traction, and we just have to stay the course. We have to continue right where we are to make sure we keep going there. That's, I think, the big difference, where there wasn't anything going on before where we were trying to have any type of leadership in the global market, in the world. There was no leader of the free world. So Trump is kind of reassuming that mantle and trying to get us there. And I think he's doing a fantastic job. It's just one that's going to take a little bit of time. So my suspicion would be that this is going to take us through June. I'd say in June, we'll see things really start to change, a little less volatility, and we'll be in a better place with respect to seeing the market a little bit more stable. And now you combine that with the 2.4 inflation, which you can't blame on Biden because he hasn't been here for the last 2 or 3 months. So this is where we're going. And the CPI number is always about a month behind. So we're really looking at only 2 months or so. So I think that's the trajectory that we're looking at, and you just got to give it time. That's why they typically give a president, 100 days before they start, beating him up and critiquing him. But when you're Trump, you don't get the honeymoon. They go right for the jugular right from the beginning, and that's just how it is. And thankfully, he's holding his own. Frank in Chicago, Illinois, WLS. Thanks for the call, brother. Send my best to Vince. Let's continue. Well, I'll take a pause right here, and then we'll continue.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you for everything. I know you very well, and I listen, but I have a lot of people that listen, and they love your show, and I appreciate it very much.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
In my district, we have a median yearly income of $61,000. A family receiving this yearly income would see $11,042 tax increase should the Trump tax cuts expire at the end of the year and we do nothing. For a family of four, this $1,142 is worth about 6 weeks of groceries in my region. It's also enough money to cover about 27 full tanks of gas, even in our big old trucks.
That is Congressman Moran from Texas, a file tape of some testimony that was given and a floor speech that was given in the Ways and Means Committee not that long ago. And those numbers probably still ring true about how detrimental it would be for Americans all across the country for the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, the Trump tax cuts of 2017, to be sunsetted and not continue. And somebody who's out there banging the pots and pans to encourage Congress to make sure that this gets extended is Alfredo Ortiz. He is the CEO of the Job Creators Network, and he's with us right now. Alfredo Ortiz, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Rich. Then that's Ortiz with a Z.
Ortiz with a Z. De los buenos. Good for you. I love that. So let's get into this, because this is a big deal. And you know, the Democrats have been lining up all last week, all over the place, already saying that this is, you know, between tariffs and this is going to be the biggest tax increase that Americans have ever seen. And they're trying to hang it right on Trump's head. And it seems like, I hope that the American people will realize that they have every opportunity to stop this from happening.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, it's actually disgusting what the Democrats do every time there's bad news, right, of any sort. They like cheer it on. It's the most anti-American thing I've ever seen. I mean, what President Trump is doing, I think, is one of the most courageous acts as a president that you can do. It's not popular to do a reset when you have, to your previous little segment there, we were talking about 30 years basically of cheap goods. I mean, we got kind of hooked on it like a drug. And what he's trying to do is unhook it, because we lost literally hundreds of thousands of American jobs. Wages have been kept low because of that. And look, it's about time. It's never easy to do any kind of reset, right? I mean, it's like you know, if I'm fat, right? I'm fat right now. I'm trying to do a reset. I'm trying to lose some weight. It's never easy, right? You have to start off at the gym. It's a little painful when you're starting, but boy, the end result is going to be amazing. But we have to get this tax cut done. And I can't believe that there actually were, fortunately, not anymore, but there were Republicans that were going to be blocking this thing from happening in the House. And now we've got a very brave speaker that's done a magnificent job, quite frankly, getting things through. And now we have one big, beautiful bill that's passed through the House, at least the budget piece, and getting it set up so that we can have one of the largest extensions of the tax cuts that President Trump did in 2017 that really did such amazing things for our small businesses.
Alfredo Ortiz, I want you to stick with me. I want to continue this conversation with you, but we have to take a quick pause right here. Folks, we're coming right back with Alfredo Ortiz. He's the CEO of Job Creators Network, urging Congress to extend the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back, familia. We continue the conversation, and a little while ago, I was beating up on Congresswoman AOC, all out crazy, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, my least favorite congresswoman from the Bronx and Queens, because she notoriously tanked this Amazon jobs deal back in the day, right? About 6-7 years ago. And we were, somebody mentioned that, and one of the callers mentioned it. And I thought it was just so interesting that the first person that called her out was Alfredo Ortiz and the Job Creators Network. They put a huge billboard in Times Square. I remember I was walking to work and I saw it and I said, look at that. That's great. I love that. And I'm glad that they were calling her out on it, because so many people were, coming to her defense saying, oh, yes, it's good that we chase away the jobs. The way the Marxists think really always kind of gets to me. But I found that interesting, and Alfredo Ortiz is with us. And Alfredo Ortiz, I want to go back to the Tax Cut and Jobs Act, but before we do, what was the result of that campaign?
Oh, that was great, by the way. I think it was pretty funny, because the best thing that she could have done is responded to me via like TikTok and all that stuff, and I was like, oh, that was good, because then I went to war with her via my billboards in Times Square, so that was great. And I think she regretted that move, and ever since then, I think she knows that we mean business. And every time we talk, she does. Unfortunately, for her, she goes, "Oh no, they're up to it again." But we will
don't mess with the Job Creators Network, right, folks? We're coming right back with Alfredo Ortiz and me, Rich Valdez. Keep it locked right here. Don't go anywhere.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Your liberty-loving Latino amigo, happy to be here with you, taking your calls. We're doing this live. We're live and national. It's 7 minutes past the hour, and here's the phone number, 833-482-5337, 833-4Valdez, and I want to get into a bunch of things tonight. We've had some discussion on the environment, and we're going to continue that discussion shortly. We talked about the big, beautiful bill. It's a big, beautiful bill. We did that with a member of Congress. That was an excellent conversation. Make sure you check that out. And we're having a discussion with the CEO of the Job Creators Network, Alfredo Ortiz. And Alfredo Ortiz, I know that you're out there beating the drums, getting everybody in Congress all encouraged and riled up to make sure that we vote and extend the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, also known as the Trump tax cuts. But Senator Jeff Merkley, he's a Democrat from Oregon. He was on Capitol Hill today on CNN, and he says this has a lot more to do with bravado. It's testosterone. It's a battle between Trump and Xi. It has nothing to do with the reality of things. Listen to this.
You have often called China an adversary. On just this point of taking on China, bumping up more tariffs on Chinese goods, do you applaud that he is taking China on so directly?
Well, he's not taking it on in a serious manner. In a serious manner, you say, hey, we're going to have a long-term, stable, rising response to the very low wages and very low environmental laws in China that are undermining manufacturing, because we want people to build their factories in the United States. But when you say I'm sending shock and awe in order to negotiate, no investor is going to build a factory in the United States as a result. So this is a really insanely, it's not crafted, it's not planned, it's from one day to the next. Where am I going to stumble to? Really, this is a testosterone battle right now between Trump and Xi, and what we need is a serious strategy that encourages investment, factories to be built in the United States of America.
I don't know where this guy is. It sounds like he's asleep at the wheel. I think that's exactly what's going on. And before we get the response from Alfredo Ortiz, I just want to say what I just heard him say, I think was really erroneous. And the reason being, I think not what company is going to want to invest in the United States. I think what company is going to want to invest in China, knowing that they're facing 145% tariffs as of today. Who knows what it'll be tomorrow when you got the rest of the world on one page and then you got China on a different page. I don't know. Is Senator Jeff Merkley right on this? Alfredo Ortiz.
Well, absolutely not. I mean, I don't even know what planet this guy is in. I don't know what planet, basically the entire party is. I mean, the speed, how long it would take what he's recommending to do. It would probably take longer to do that than watching Joe Biden get off of Air Force One.
Falling up the stairs.
I mean, yeah, talking about stumbling, boy. No. I mean, look, for 30 years, it really started, if you think about it, started after, basically the Carter administration with hyperinflation, where this whole idea of global supply chain management came about, and folks were trying to find ways of producing goods abroad because it's so darn expensive under Carter to produce stuff. And so but then we got hooked on these cheap goods and things were being produced over there, and again, we've lost hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs. And what President Trump is trying to do by doing what he's doing is bringing these manufacturing jobs to America and actually raising wages at the same time. And look, he's achieving so much. We have over 75 countries, and people are saying, by the way, that, he blinked. This is their favorite term now. If you look up blinked, right? It's all coming from the left, it's coming from the left media. He didn't blink. What other actually happened truly is the others all capitulated. They're like, yeah, he's right. Taking advantage of that for 30 years, and now he's called us on it, right? And so that's what they're doing. And look, the reality is the one thing that's incredible about President Trump is that he knows leverage. He knows when he has leverage and when he doesn't. And we are the world's largest consumption economy, period, stop, end of story, right? We are. The rest of the world needs the American consumer. And he knows that, and he's using that leverage against these other countries. You can see 75 already saying, hey, Monty Hall, let's make a deal, right? And that's exactly what's happening. So he already succeeded on that. He's going to be doing for the next 90 days, negotiating with these countries. And by the way, I actually think he's going to keep some level of tariffs in place, which is, guess where that money's coming from? It's coming into the Treasury. And I actually think some of these countries are probably going to subsidize these tariffs because guess what? They don't want to lose business market share. They don't want to lose market share, right, to the American companies. And so I think he's absolutely correct. It's going to go into the Treasury, going to help pay off our debt. I mean, we're $37 trillion in debt. I mean, at what point do we not say stop? Enough is enough. We got to stop with the spending. We got to stop with the borrowing. And we got to do a reset. And look at the price of energy. Oil has dropped by 20%. I mean, that CI report that just came out today that actually showed a decline in inflation, that's an energy story right there. It's all attributed to the energy and the price and the drop of oil, which is exactly what President Trump did, said he was going to do with drill, baby, drill.
Yeah. Right. Listen, to me, all the puzzle pieces fit together. I don't see how, even if you don't like Trump, how people can miss it. Even this Senator Merkley, right? His job is to be there to take shots at Trump, to take shots at Republicans in the agenda. But he says this is really insanely not crafted. It's not planned. It's from one day to the next. How else do you negotiate, Alfredo Ortiz, right? A Job Creators Network. I'm sure you've had to negotiate things. This is what you do. This is how we do it. I go here, you go there. I go I go high, you go low. It's a tussle.
I mean, what's shocking is the way he's doing. Where he goes, you know what? Let's just take them all on at once. Let's just go ahead and have a massive reset all at once. I mean, the boldness of that is amazing, right? And you do have to give him amazing amounts of credit for taking that on. Look, he did, and there is a certain point you have to take some kind of a leap of faith that it's all going to work. But the plan, I mean, look who he surrounds himself with. Some of the most brilliant economic minds in the world, right? That are, I mean, they're no dummies, and they know what they're doing here. And you got to kind of take that leap of faith that it's going to work. Like I said, oil's already dropping. You're going to see interest rates start coming down, right? Because you're going to have, less cost of goods, inflation coming down, right? So, when inflation comes down, you can drop the interest rates. And we're going to have more people buying homes. It's all
that's
gonna
where
work.
it's at. I believe. I believe once you have that, once people start buying homes again, second homes, third homes, whatever, investments, Trump starts building hotels, whomever. Once you see that, there's all sorts of things related to the economy when you see building happening again. My opinion.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. But we need to get that tax cut passed. We got to get it extended and expanded. By the way, one thing that we're pushing for. There was a 20% tax deduction that was part of the 2017. We're actually pushing for our small businesses to have a 25% tax deduction when that 15% corporate rate takes into effect. We want that small business tax deduction to go up to 25%. Because you know what happened last time when it went to 20%, this deduction? These small businesses invested in more people, right? Yep. They had more jobs.
Hiring people left and right.
Left and right, right? They gave them more benefits. They gave them higher pay, or they reinvested back into machinery and equipment to grow their businesses. And guess what? That machinery and equipment required jobs, right? Exactly. And so, I mean, we have to do it. And by the way, there's, again, this crazy talk coming from our side, a couple congressmen out there. I'm not going to name names right now, but they know who they are if they're listening, right? Which are actually advocating raising the tax rates on our most successful job creators to 41 or 42%. They just might as well go, change their R to a D because that's a Democrat strategy.
Yeah. Alfredo Ortiz, thanks for the update, my brother. Godspeed in all the work you're doing. I hope you'll be back soon with a really positive update. Alfredo Ortiz, CEO of Job Creators Network. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Rich.
You bet. And amigos, we're going to talk about the environment and your calls. We got calls from Tennessee, from Oregon, and more that are ringing through right now. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
right. But you're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
The Biden EPA was strangulating the economy. The Trump EPA understands it's not a binary choice. We can protect the environment and grow the economy. Working with Doge and Elon Musk, we've now canceled $22 billion worth of grants. And we have launched what is the largest deregulatory action in the history of the country, just in one agency. That's how much of a mess the Biden EPA left us. It is going to end up reducing the cost of living. It's going to create jobs. It's going to make it easier to purchase a car. It will be easier to heat your home. We're proud of this effort. The effort that we have is fulfilling the mandate that you earned from the American public. Clean air, land, and water for all Americans, unleashing energy dominance, permitting reform, advancing cooperative federalism, making America the AI capital of the world, and bringing back American auto jobs. When you called me that day asking for me to take this position, I was honored. And you were very specific and clear in what you wanted us to accomplish. We understand our mission, and at the Trump EPA, we're going to make you proud.
That is EPA Chief Lee Zeldin, former Congressman Lee Zeldin from New York, laying out a very, very bold agenda for the Trump administration as far as the EPA is concerned. And I want to get some reaction to that and some of the other news that's going on, because you've got a lot of interference, whether it's the RINOs in Congress and everything else that's happening. I want to bring in Mandy Gunasekara. She is the former chief of staff at the EPA in Trump 1.0, and she's also the author of the book, Y'all Fired. Mandy, welcome back.
Yeah, it's great to be with you, Rich.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's get into a little bit of this, because I think EPA Administrator Zeldin laid out a bold agenda that I think has always been the agenda, but it seems to be getting done, and, despite the opposition from Democrats and RINOs. Tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. And the great thing to see is that Administrator Zeldin and his team, they didn't waste any time. And honestly, this is a culmination of lessons learned from the first go-round, and the fact that there were groups that never stopped working from the time we all left the White House in January 2021 to when President Trump walked back in. There were a lot of groups strategically thinking about how certain agendas could be implemented on day one. And Administrator Zeldin and his team, they've quickly gotten to work. And it's just refreshing to hear someone who is restoring a really important characteristic at EPA that's been missing for the past 4 years, and that's balance. It's balance between economic development and growth fueled by in American energy dominance alongside continued environmental protection. And it's tough work to strike the right balance. For President Trump, he proved he could do it in the first go-round, and Administrator Zeldin laid out a really clear, concise, strategic vision to achieve it once again, and they are already well underway.
Mandy, tell us about at least your thoughts on the CPI numbers that came in today. We're seeing inflation going down. One of my previous guests alluded to the fact that this is likely because of the president's drill baby drill agenda, and we're seeing a drop in oil prices and whatnot. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think that's absolutely right, because the cost of energy impacts everything. It impacts the price of goods because you have to pay for transportation costs. It certainly impacts the price of what consumers pay at the pump, and all of that collectively impacts the inflation rate. And so President Trump, he was very clear on the campaign trail. One of the things he was going to do early on, and his promise to make America more affordable again, was to rein in inflation. And a key part of that was unleashing American energy. And the great thing about the energy industry is that if you send a signal, a clear signal to the marketplace that says, we're open for business, we're going to use our resources in the responsible, safe manner we know how to do, but we're going to use them because we need them. And it's so impactful to the price of everyday goods that have been burdening Americans for the past 4 years. He quickly got to work with that, and we're seeing already the benefits of that in such a massive way. So it's a promise already on its way to being fulfilled early on, and he hasn't even been there for that long, but he's having a huge impact that the Americans are feeling in a positive way, especially when it comes to their pocketbooks.
Amigos, we're on with Mandy Gunasekara. She's a former chief of staff at the United States Department of the Environmental Protection Agency, I should say, and author of the book, Y'all Fired, Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. And I want to get into a little bit of how the left and the RINOs are trying to sabotage this. But before I do, I want to get your take on just other things that get in the way when it comes to the environmental policy. And maybe it's the environmental policy itself, right? I think the fact that overregulation or, just too much of an emphasis on regulation is stifling in and of itself. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. And what happens, we saw this really amped up during the Obama administration and was really reinstituted during the Biden administration. But the mission of EPA is to protect public health and the environment. That's the congressionally mandated mission of the agency, and an agency can only act in ways that Congress has given it true legal authority. What happened during the Obama and the Biden administrations is that they ignored these mandates and they allowed the agency's core functions to be co-opted for political purposes. And their chief political purpose was to push this climate change agenda that was really defined by the Green New Scam, as President Trump rightfully called it. But it was pushing onerous regulations on industries and technologies that had fallen out of the political favor of the left, mainly coal, oil, and natural gas. And they went out of their way to put their thumb on the regulatory scale to make it hard to extract, produce, and use these resources that still provide 80% of our daily energy needs. So, yeah, that's exactly right. The left will co-opt and corrupt the agency's true mission to achieve their own political purposes to the detriment of everyday Americans, everyday consumers, but also in many ways it undermines environmental protections that we have had great progress on since the 1970s with clean air, clean water, and addressing legacy pollution.
Really well put. Mandy Gunasekara, former chief of staff at EPA. And I want to get into this clip. I played a clip of audio a couple of days ago of Congressman Don Bacon trying to sabotage the tariff strategy that the president's putting out there. And I'm going to play the clip, but we have to take a quick pause. But it's just interesting to me, does he have a dog in this fight that's not the United States? It's very bizarre to me. But we're going to get to that momentarily. Amigos, we're coming right back with Mandy Gunasekara, former chief of staff at the Environmental Protection Agency during the first Trump administration. And, of course, she's the author of the book, Y'all Fired. And we're coming back. Your calls and more. I see the calls are lining up, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you. 833-4-VALDEZ. Don't go anywhere.
The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I know you are introducing companion legislation to what Senator Cantwell just laid out for us. But as I understand it, in the House, Republican leaders have already restricted the ability to rein in changes to the Mexico, Canada, and China tariffs. They tucked language into the continuing resolution. Does that get in your way when you are trying to now claw back some congressional control of tariffs?
Margaret, thanks for having me on. And I enjoyed listening to Senator Cantwell. I support the legislation that Senator Grassley, Senator Cantwell, we have a total of 7 Republicans in the Senate. And I have some beginning support on the House side, which we'll unveil tomorrow. It will be harder to pass this in the House, no doubt. I think if we get 60 votes in the Senate, they'll put pressure on the House to look at this. And if we continue to see the stock market go a certain direction, or if we see inflation or unemployment shift in a bad way, I think then this bill becomes a very viable bill. So it will not pass tomorrow or maybe in the next couple of weeks, but this will be in the queue that we can use. And it's time that Congress restores its authorities here. And the Constitution is clear. The House and the Senate, Congress has the power of tariffs and taxes, and we gave some of that power to the executive branch. And I think in hindsight, that was a mistake.
That is Congressman Don Bacon, comments he made earlier this week. And it seems like he's not only trying to sabotage President Trump's tariff strategy, but he's also saying, and we're going to keep it locked and loaded to continue to threaten the president and the agenda. I want to bring it back to our guest, Mandy Gunasekara, former chief of staff at the Environmental Protection Agency, and the author of the book, Y'all Fired, A Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp. Mandy, what say you?
Yeah, look, I see Congressman Bacon and others, they couldn't handle the incoming. There was a lot of criticism with the president doing something that frankly should have been done a long time ago, and that was to stop other countries from ripping off the United States of America in the form of trade and establishing those reciprocal tariffs. Now, all of these folks that just a few days ago that were a political extension of the Panacan Caucus that President Trump aptly named in a social post. I think they frankly look like fools at this point. President Trump, in just a matter of days, has literally shifted the global trade balance and to the benefit of this country. I mean, even before implementing his tariff policy, you already saw in March the job numbers that came out, 228,000 jobs created. The estimation from economists was around 140,000. He blew that out of the water. As we already discussed, he's lowering inflation. And what the people on Capitol Hill, the members of Congress, should be focusing on is getting the president's Tax Cut and Jobs Act cuts. Let's make them permanent, and let's continue to implement a lot of his tax-based reforms that he's proposed, and they need to focus on that. The president was supported by the majority of the American people. He was very clear what he was going to do when it came to tariffs, and he started doing it, and it's so frustrating to see Republicans in particular try to stop him just as he's getting things underway and just as we're seeing things shift finally to the benefit of the American worker and the economy writ large. So, look, after just a few days, all of them look like a bunch of fools because the president already has new deals he's working on with all countries except China, which, ultimately the president said he thinks that there will be a deal, but it's just going to be a matter of timing and they've got to figure it out. But it is a whole new day. And these members of Congress need to let him do what the American people sent him up to do. And he was very clear about that all along the way.
Mandy Gunasekara, I think you nailed it. I think that's 100% accurate. And something that the congressman said there, he said, and if the inflation numbers go in the wrong direction, well, those came back at 2.4% today. And I think, we'd have to wait for another one to come out. But if they continue to trend downward, then it seems like these guys are further and further away from being truthful and accurate, and Trump is just winning on all cylinders.
Yeah, that's right. President Trump understands how the economy works, and he also understands the art of the deal and creating leverage. And those are two things those members of Congress, frankly, they don't understand, or they are just reacting in short order to political whims, one way or the other. And that's been a longstanding problem in Congress, that you had members of Congress that don't necessarily go up bringing substantive policy chops to the equation. Instead, they're just creatures of politics, and they get wrapped up in these back and forth whims. They don't necessarily have a principle to stand upon. And President Trump is the complete opposite. He's not the pushover politician caucus. He's the America First visionary that has laid out very clear principles. The economy was the number 2 issue, only behind the border and security for most Americans when they went to the voting booth. He knows that. He has he has a very effective agenda that he understands. The folks at the White House are working with him. They're burning the midnight oil, to say the least. I met with a bunch of friends. I was in D.C. earlier this week, and I know that there are so many good, talented, smart, strategic people supporting the president at the White House. We just need Congress to support him and to support, as you said, the American people, because that is who is ultimately already benefiting and going to benefit in the long term from what President Trump is doing on tariffs, on tax, and addressing inflation.
Well put. Very well put. Mandy Gunasekara, author of Y'all Fired, a Southern Belle's Guide to Restoring Federalism and Draining the Swamp, former chief of staff at the EPA. Mandy, let everybody know how they can follow you and keep up to speed with the work you're doing.
Yeah, the best way is on X. You can follow me at Mississippi MG, or you can check out my website, mandy.ms. I've got a weekly memo I put out on Fridays called the Mandy Memo. So if folks wanted to subscribe to that, they'll know all the things that are going on in my relative world.
Outstanding. Well, thanks for being with us and giving us an update on this. Godspeed to you, and I hope to have you back on really soon.
Sure, anytime. Always great to be with you.
You bet. God bless. All right, amigos, we continue your thoughts, calls, reactions, and everything else when we return.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
After the guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And there's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Well, I think it's very close, but, we have to have a deal that we like. We don't want a deal that's going to be a bad deal, or I could make every deal in one day if I wanted to. I could do this all in one day. I could just say, here's what we'll do. And I was saying to the people before, to Scott, mostly to Scott and Howard, and some of the other people that work with us on the negotiations. We have a lot of law firms that have paid me a lot of money in the form of legal fees. We're going to probably use those firms to, if we can, I think we can. I'll make a contribution to the country, but they're great firms. They're the best firms, the biggest, and really the most prestigious. And we may be using them to help you guys out, because you're going to need a lot of lawyers. And I'm not sure Pam's going to be happy if I say, can you send over about 200 lawyers that work on trade? She's working on criminal stuff, and I think that's going to be her focus more than anything else. So we'll find out if we can do that. But we have a lot of lawyers that you've been reading about where they paid $100 million a firm on average. Now we have the final 4 or 5 are at $125 million. So I have a lot of legal fees I could give to you people, and we might as well use them. Hopefully I won't need that many legal fees or that much. I may. Who knows? After it ends, after we leave, maybe I'll need it. But if I do, it's not going to be very pleasant. So I think we're going to try to use these very prestigious firms to help us out with the trade, because we have a lot of countries, but we want to make deals that are proper for the United States. Not just we can make deals easily. We want to make them proper.
President Trump says we can make deals easily, but we want to make them proper, talking about the use of the best lawyers, the best big, beautiful bill, best lawyers. I want to know what you guys think about this. Let us go to Oregon, West Coast in the building. Michael, Pendleton, Oregon, KUMA. Go right ahead.
Rich, so great to talk to you again. It's great to be back. I made a switch in my schedule where I'll be able to call in, be a regular caller again, like I
Welcome
was
back.
one time there. Rich, hey, love your show. You've had outstanding shows. I've been listening, every time I can, you and Billy Cunningham
he's
are the
terrific.
best. He has had outstanding shows on his Sunday
He
nights.
is a great American.
Yes, and you are a great American, Rich.
Thank you.
And he said you both make such great points. I am so proud of President Trump. He has a genius to him that I haven't seen since the great Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan had that sense of genius too, in so many things that he did. And what President Trump is accomplishing, I see that same thing in him. I mean, we've had bad trade deals for decades, and he is addressing this, and he's bringing this all around. So we're going to have fair trade deals with other countries. And I agree with him. I think China has been, the biggest problem. We've been being ripped off by these countries. I think I heard something just recently on a news program, Rich, that I think most recently the amount of imports and exports with China, I think the amount that we exported was maybe roughly a little over 120 billion, and then what we were importing from them was like roughly over 420 billion. So you can see the discrepancy there, and that hasn't been fair at all. And the other presidents really hadn't done much about this really, and President Trump has seen this and he's addressing it. And Billy Cunningham pointed out we have to take the long view of it. He said what China has said is if it takes 1,000 years, they're going to try to replace the United States. They're looking at the long view of things. And President Trump sees that. And like I said, he's getting these things accomplished now that should have been accomplished all along.
Yeah. No, I think you're 100% right, Michael. This is what it comes down to. And sometimes these are complicated things for certain people to understand. And that's not a thinly veiled insult or anything like that. A lot of people don't get it. Look, I am not a fan of tariffs. I say it all the time. But I understand what Trump's doing here. And he's added a lot of caveats also. He's talked about the Department of External Revenue and the idea of maybe replacing the Department of Internal Revenue. Nobody's ever said that they want to get rid of income tax and, keep an import tax or a sales tax that makes up that shortfall. And nobody's ever said that. I like that idea. I got a lot more control with an idea like that than just take my money the way it is now, right? Take half, take 30%, 38, 43, whatever they want to take. So I think, spot on there, brother. Spot on. Michael in Pendleton, Oregon, thanks for your kind words. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it, brother. Godspeed to you. And I'll do one more, and then we'll take a quick pause here. Let's go to Jim. Jim is in Leoma, Tennessee, WXDE. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich. You got great guests tonight. I mean, you always have good guests. But
thank you.
You mentioned that there were 2 Republicans that voted no to the wonderful bill today, and I just wonder, and I wonder what you might think about those people, those guys that were elected. They were elected by thousands of people, or hundreds of thousands of people probably, and how can they really feel that those people want them to vote no on that bill? I just don't understand
good question.
that.
I understand some of the pushback, right? And I don't know. We've had Representative Spartz on the show before. I don't know what her issue with the bill was. I know that we've also we've heard in the past from Thomas Massey, who's taken an exception on a number of things, and even the president has gotten into it with him, saying that he's grandstanding and whatnot. I know that a lot of what he usually stands against is spending. He's usually, if there's too much spending involved, he's not interested. He's very libertarian in his approach. I don't know what Congresswoman Spartz's position was, but I do get it. I know that every now and again you're going to get a member of Congress that just they can't buy into it. I think that they likely should have, because, we need to get this thing through, but we got it through. So I don't know all of the considerations there, but I think that's kind of where they're going to land. For the most part, very, very solid, both relatively very solid supporters of the president, but for, an issue here or an issue there. So I don't have the scoop, but I'll find it. Hopefully they'll give statements, and we'll bring you the audio on that. Jim in Leoma, Tennessee, WXDE. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your call. Shout out to everybody in Tennessee. I was in Tennessee not that long ago. My nephew is a state highway patrol trooper, and always giving a big shout out to all of the Tennessee Highway Patrol. All right, Jim, thank you, my brother. Godspeed to you. Amigos, we come right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
I'm not just the only guy out here. There's a handful of, I think, very prominent Republicans in the Senate that agree to this. And I'm not trying to tell the president how to negotiate, but he has to come to Congress and request approval when he wants to do tariffs. And I think a lot of Congress will support tariffs on China. They would support tariffs on Russia, which was not on the tariff list this time, which they should have been. But we're not anti-tariffs in all situations. But we should have a vote. James Madison wrote this, that Congress should be the approval authority for taxes and tariffs. I mean, we have the power of the purse, and we gave the president emergency powers, but this is not emergency powers. This is resetting tariff policy, and that's really in the realm of Congress.
Now, that is, again, Representative Don Bacon, who's been very critical of the president's strategy, including his critique of how things are being handled with Russia. I want to go to James, Danbury, Connecticut, WLAD. James, go right ahead quickly.
How you doing, Rich?
Good, thank you.
I think I had this discussion with you once before, but I still would like to know why Putin is being so soft on Putin. Because the other day, one of the missiles in the schoolyard killed little kids, and he doesn't show any signs of letting up. And I want to know what kind of sanctions is Trump putting on Putin?
Yeah, well, I think the sanctions haven't changed. But the tariffs, Putin definitely did escape any direct tariff there, likely because of trade, and really because I would say the Liberation Day stuff really, it sent the price of crude oil plunging more than $10 a barrel, right, down to below $63. And with that happening, this is costing Putin a ton, right? Probably tens of billions of dollars in lost oil revenue, because this threatens his war machine. He has to sell oil in order to continue producing weapons at the rate that he is. And I don't think it's being soft on Putin, but I think it's being cautious, right? Russia is producing weapons. They're at war, and they're producing weapons like they're at war. The statistic isn't a lie or an exaggeration. They are producing more weapons than all of NATO combined. So when somebody's cranking out bombs like that, I think you'd better tread lightly, right? You're trying to avoid World War III, not exacerbate it. So I think the tariffs on the other countries, lowering the cost of crude, is actually slowing Putin down, which is yet another invisible tax. Thank you, brother. Hasta la próxima. Take care, and God bless you, America. I'm Rich Valdez.